they got 5 points out of it. And there were some positives. Sean Johnson was really good for one. Obviously getting forward David Dent onto the pitch as well. Good to put some new faces.
Welcome back. So we're driving from Ballycoolin to Drogheda. We're going to go via Slane, see if any of the concert things are up yet. It's currently 27 degrees according to the car. I'd say it's probably about 22, 23, but it's quite warm. And podcast on at the moment is the Left Wing Rugby podcast.
They never look particularly cohesive when you see them. There's always a stumbling element to those middle games in November, and I think we just saw the same thing here. There's a lack of familiarity in the units. There's a lack of familiarity that then bleeds into set piece, and then that robs you of two really vital platforms to play off. And again, you're in this position where you're looking for individual performances, and what really is the ultimate team sport. So it's almost a contradiction in terms where people are trying to impress, people are trying to put their hand up as individuals, which in turn makes it very difficult for the team to impress. And as a result, it just sort of feels like, with the exception to you mentioned, like Sean Johnson, in general, it always feels like it's easier to play your way out of contention than play your way into contention in terms of Ireland in these games. And I think that was just what we saw again.
Yeah, don't disagree with that. A few specific things we can get into with Luke first. What was your general impression?
Yeah, look, it was a tricky one, wasn't it? I think they got the job done, which is probably the key thing. Japan were pretty good at different points. They were good going forward. I thought that young 10 actually was a very nice player, ball in hand, and he actually pretty brave as well. I mean, a few good tackles here and there for fairly diminutive bloke. But his ball in hand was beautiful. I thought they were quite accurate at rough time for the most part. Just lacked a little bit, I thought, on physicality, which I thought Ireland looks like definitely the more physical team. I thought the two guys in the row for Japan were actually very strong and very physical, but outside of that, I thought Ireland kind of measured them, when their big ball players got their hands on it, and we were accurate for long enough. We were able to put them under pressure and kind of squeeze them out, but so that's maybe a little bit of Japan. I actually thought they kicked a lot better than us as well. That is something that I thought they did better than us. From Ireland's perspective, I was pretty disappointed, I think, actually. I thought the line-out was very poor. I thought it was obviously one very unlucky when Ryan gets. They could have done with it. Actually, in hindsight, they could have done winning that one. They could just maybe set themselves down with clear foul play from I don't know who jumped for Japan, but they took Ryan's arm out. Never really got the set, they missed that one. It was from Japan, and from there, they never really recovered. And then they made some poor decisions, I thought. Short line in the second half, silly, really, well, it was stupid play. I also thought it was other ones where they were they needed to win some lineouts. I don't know why they didn't go more short lineouts. They did it at the start of the second half, they won 1 or 2 in a row. In the first half, they were going over the back of the 15 with throws when they hadn't won lineouts. It's just who was calling these lineouts? A lot of it would be dictated by what plays you're going to play off 10. Quite clearly they were struggling at a touch, and there were bad calls, there were bad line-out calls.
These roundabouts meet new Americans, no idea where you need to be on them.
Sometimes they get the ball out of that, and they were clearly, whenever they got the ball down, they were organised. They had a few decent balls against the Japanese teams, and could have used that as a weapon and gone to the short line-out. It was frustrating to watch. Some decision-making there. Scrum was worrying. Really strong scrum. So Italy did the Irish scrum in the Six Nations. The scrum is those two New Zealand props. I know they're not kind of, we talk as much as you could like one gain or a
Hi, Alexander.
And sort of kicking off. I said last week on air that we needed to just be solid and put the team in position. We didn't need to shoot the lights out.
Just driving from Dublin back to Drogheda.
Solid. Shit. His line kicking wasn't great, so I don't know. I've been going for a long time. I feel like I'm a fool now, but I think I might have been wrong with that. I think he needs a season at 10. I told you I'd be hurt this week, but you know, maybe it is being too harsh. I don't know. He left me very really uncertain about his ability to play that position. Seriously.
Yeah, Jonathan will bring you in on this, like, because obviously.
Not too bad. Just finished work, heading home. Going to head via Slane to see the concert. Barricades being put up. How are you?
Even just when it cut to the coach's box, a little shaking of head from Johnny Sex, and like that was picked up on the camera. Like he clearly wasn't happy with that either, because it was just so lackadaisical and careless. And even his reaction, kind of swiping at the tee with his foot, he knew that was just a bad mistake. Because missing a straightforward diversion can help, but it was more a process behind it, that it was just so rushed, as if it was like right in front of the sticks, and it was like, you know, the end of the game almost, or it didn't even matter. The line kicking was noticeable. Ito, the Japan out half, had two monster line kicks, like one from inside his own half that he put like 5 or 6 meters in. Frawley, we had marked on a penalty like just outside the 22, and he kicked it about 10 meters to about 15 meters out, and then about 5-10 minutes later it was inside the 22, and he only got it to 12 meters out. I just thought it didn't show a lot of ambition. Yeah, then he threw a ball on the ground early doors. He had another kick back down early doors. I just didn't think he took the opportunity at all, and I understand it was a scratch team. Certainly the back line didn't have much cohesion in terms of guys going about the other before, but you know, I mentioned that Fiji game with Joey Carby. That was his last Ireland appearance, I think, before he was dropped from the squad for the subsequent Six Nations, or certainly his last start. I think Frawley, I know Andy Farrell actually talked about his performance afterwards, but I thought it was a real missed opportunity, and yeah, just didn't take it, I don't think.
No, he didn't, and I think he got off to probably the worst possible start. Maybe we threw a 9 out and then he slips for the timeout, and then things felt like it took him a while to get settled. He mentioned the reaction after the conversion. Like you can see on his face and the way he sort of not aggressively, but there's an awful lot of frustration in the way that he turned around there, to the point where he in the moment realised how big a mistake that was and how much that was going to kind of get. So, but you know, you talk about Joey Barber in that Fiji game. In a way, I think that's instructive in the sense that it's hardest in my mind, it's hardest in my mind in those sort of teams where there is that lack of cohesion. It's hardest, I think, for the 9 and 10. And I think that's a big part of why we see so few people putting their hands up. Like, it was a big day for Casey as well. Like, he's not about to display his gifts and art. It was a big day for him to sort of challenge him to do it. I thought, and again, it was a really difficult team performance. The halfbacks to look like they were running the show, and I just think you don't want to excuse everything because of the number of changes, but I think we're at the stage with this Ireland team where we see this so frequently that it's interesting to me to think about what the coaches are able to gain from this when the team performance drops off to such a level whenever they're trying to gauge the performances of individuals. We're still hearing it for these games, and it's stick around, because I think the phrase that was used. But I think at the point where it's just like, we know how difficult it is in these games that they make these changes. I think we're at the point where we have to question the value of making that number of changes going into as much as there are so far.
Yeah, well, I really like that point. I really like that point. You know, that was what I was going for this week, was for it to not as many changes, but just to, you know, kind of bring on people, you know, kind of early in the second half, give them more opportunities that way. I think it's a really good point that Jonathan makes, because like, what are you trying to find out? You're trying to find out who can fit into the team and not let you down. It's very hard to gain that when you know, and sorry, the one thing that's there was a bit enough experience in the pack for them to not be missing lineouts. Like, so they were let down by guys that they do rely on. You know what I mean? They couldn't get any kind of momentum in the game. They couldn't get any flow, and that's disappointing as well. You know, that I would say I would be very frustrated that you didn't, because it can work. It can be a
case where that can work, because you have McCluskey in the centre. He's your starting 12. You can work with him. He's something you can kind of build like momentum around. But you never really got to see him that much. The bits we saw in attack, he looked great. He was sloppy defensively, I will say, a few bad penalties, and a few ones where he was the one off the line out was really bad. Where he's offside and that kind of the 12 should never be offside there. You should see everything.
He was lucky not to be called for another one about 2 minutes before. He was miles offside.
Yes, and he's a key player for Ireland at the moment. He can't be making those mistakes. But my point is that some of the big guys, compounded pressure didn't help them out, and you have to question then, like, what are you actually able to learn? It's not what do you learn, it's what are you actually able to learn by making these selections. Are you better off keeping a cohort there from the week before and just offloading them once they're settled into the game? So it's an interesting question. I think that I do think they should think about that. I do think that, because otherwise it's like a fitness test. It's not really about that. I changed it up 8%. It's like really drastic. But then as you to the point of, like, when you look at the changes, like a lot of them are guys who are used a lot. Like Clarkson starting, they're 2 changes, but they're 2 guys who play a lot of minutes in any game. Ty Byrne is a change.
He wasn't slowing down anyway.
So some guys were new. I don't think it was as drastic a change the team as the 9 makes it out to be. Sorry, is my point. So my guys, I'm saying that I would have thought they could have had a much better performance. So
Hi Jason, how's it going?
Yeah, but I always felt like, so one of the key guys they were looking at figuring out was Flynn. I made the case last week. Why wouldn't you give him Gibson Park? Give him Gibson Park. Just give him, and like you wouldn't have to have made a decision between Casey and Doug, and I probably would have gone with Doug, to be honest with you. But I just would have said, like, give the really key guy that you wanted to get a look at was definitely Fall and see could he handle it. The difference it would have made to have Gibson Park there, just in terms of he was kicking with massive pressure. There's a big difference between Casey's and Casey's a left footer. So it's all these kind of weird, it's a tricky little one to get Casey in straight away, get the team used to that. And that sounds like an excuse, but I think it seems really logical. And to just give him a little bit of security. He plays with Gibson Park all the time. I just thought that was I would have gone a different route with that to get a better hooker form. You're taking a risk with the New Zealand game, but I don't know. I think what I'm really trying to find out about this team is depth this year going into the World Cup. And the Nations Cup, of course, is important. Really, what's in the corner of everyone's eye when we're thinking about everything is, or in the corner of your mind, it's World Cup. And there's going to be limited opportunities to see forward. We're just giving them a better opportunity to showcase himself a bit better once we settle them down a little bit. Because I thought Casey actually had a kind of a different enough game, and harsh on him too, right? Because he's coming into that similar environment at 10 that's not used to kind of starting. Hasn't played in 5 weeks. So he was playing with that and playing with a pack that was struggling to get like kind of clean ball to him. If you look, there's a huge difference between him and Gibson Park. Like really, really big. His kicking is so much shorter. I thought he hovered over the ball way too long. You'd have to go back and watch the game to know what I'm thinking about now, because maybe you might have noticed it if you weren't looking for it. But he hovered over the ball way too long. Which can be 2 things. It can be the pack guy, the guy, your 4 pods and your 10 maybe not being in position early enough, and you're not being comfortable throwing the pass. It could be poor delivery. It could be the pod not being ready to kind of accept the ball and be in a good enough position. I thought there was a bit of everything happening, but there was lots where he had someone to go to, and most Luku, Roygaard, these guys, they're just getting it out. If you're not ready in the ball, it's gone. It's the team's. It's on the team to be in position for the scrum half. But I thought he looked like a guy who hadn't played that regularly in the team. Hadn't played rugby in quite a while. Like a competitive game. It looked a bit like that. Like if he's playing quicker, Casey with that Munster pack, when he gets them rolling forward, he's really, really quick delivery out of the ruck. He's a small guy. When he's hungry in there, he gets it out really quickly. Didn't do that on the weekend, so that didn't help him go forward either. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought there was loads of things working against him.
that really are not a helpful way to get a look at some of the guys you want to get a better look at. It feels like you're making excuses now. I really not. I think I was pretty harsh on Frawley, but I think I'm right on that too. I do think that, like, Farrell can be very harsh at times. Frawley's experienced that. And I just think, it's great. I'm sorry, I'm coming in for a long time on Jonathan, but it's a really important point, I think. One is, what's the value in this, you know?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting discussion considering how the performance went out. And like another Casey moment where you kind of say, oh, Gibson Park would have probably handled that better was just on half time, the big break from Ireland's own half when Timoney and Johnson link, and Johnson gets tackled about 2 or 3 meters short, and Gibson Park is so good at picking passes around the line, and Casey goes with the skip to Henshaw. He was on the bench against Australia, but bench, and he wouldn't have played just a Munster URC quarter-final if he'd bowled. So that's a long time for a 9 not to have his eye in, and I think it showed. Yeah, I agree. They were probably the 2 most disappointing performances, and it is harsh, but they had the most to gain in some ways from good outings, and probably didn't get it. Just go back to the line-out, Jonathan. Like, to the point that the pack was actually pretty experienced,
petrol 173.
Like, not good to rear its head so close to this big New Zealand game, and it wasn't great against Australia either. It's funny when you look at the numbers; they don't sound that bad. Like, Ireland won 14 out of 18 lineouts at the weekend. Not great, but it doesn't seem drastic. And they actually only lost 4 in the entire Six Nations, so they lost as many at the weekend as they did in the entire Six Nations. And against Australia, 3 out of 22, which doesn't seem that bad, but there was a couple of crucial ones that kind of going awry cost them dearly. So they've lost 7 lineouts in the last 2 games ahead of the All Blacks.
What about that for the weekend? Ireland only lost 4 out of 18.
That's what it said on the official stats on the website.
So if you get the ball back, that kind of counts. If it's like,
and I think that's the key point, because so much of what they did technically win was scrappy. So they're coming in on the weekend. I think it was 78%. I think on the
Hi,
weekend,
how's it going?
which is okay, but that doesn't take into account the ball that you're having to battle for, the ball that you're not getting out there quickly, and how everything that you're planning then to do off the line out is compromised. And I think that
Casey knock on would have been one line out. Even though, to Luke's point, Ryan's arm. Yeah, I know it didn't sound right when I read it, but it's on the official stat sheet. So when Ryan's arm pulled, that's taking one line out. Sorry, Jonathan, I just wanted to jump in on that.
What is going
so
on?
I think that was the big thing, because so much of that performance is disjointed. I think stemmed from how disjointed the line out was. Like, it feels like we've been talking about this on and off for years at this point, but when the line out doesn't function, it undermines so much of everything else.
Normally go home that way,
the
past
general
delete.
impression of the Ireland performance.
I just want to see what Slane is like at the moment.
Stuttering, being scrappy. You can bring it all the way back to the line out, but even just Ireland's attack, I think, was so hampered by not having that much from the line out, because going all the way back to Joe Schmidt, it's been such an important part of Ireland when Ireland are going well, that whenever it does go wrong, we've seen it go wrong in games based matches over the years. It really, really does hamper you. You talk about how it wasn't great against Australia either, but if you don't get it right next week against the All Blacks in Eden Park, you don't have a chance before the game's kicked off. You're not going to win that game by the line.
Yeah, it's funny how it just rears its head every so often. Like last November, it was a really big talking point. It was very poor against New Zealand and Chicago. It was very poor against Japan actually as well. In the Aviva, it was really bad. And then the Six Nations lose 4 lineouts across 5 games, so it's actually very good. You might lose 1 a game, and it's not the end of the world. But then the last 2 weeks have been very, very hit and miss again. Look, it's a funny one. How it just keeps popping up, and then going back to maybe a strong line, and then going back to where we've been. Very perplexing.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's. I suppose there's a part of that that's a little bit encouraging, is that they can't fix it. You can just hope that maybe that they. That you don't have to deal with these kind of issues every now and then. You wish maybe it happened a little less often. Maybe is a better way of describing that. And I always think, I think about it from. I'm not in the detail on the lineup, okay. But what I like to see from a team that I think is good at the line-out, like a really good line-out operating team that kind of could have an off day timing-wise, difficult conditions, very good defensive line, whatever it is, there are issues that can crop up that are kind of outside your control, but there are some things that are within your control. I like to see proactive calling from the team when it's not going well. Like, so what I like to see is, just as a general rugby guy who's watching rugby since I'm 5, is, you know, I like to see them set. For example, the solution to me, since I've been thinking about this kind of stuff as a part of the game, would probably have been, and this is probably the limit of my understanding of it, is they go to a short line when you're struggling. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just, if you're not getting it, if you don't feel like it's flowing, give the hooker some nice, easy ones that he can, you know, bit of nice movement, get the timing right, you know, let him see the ball go into the row's hands. I'm sure that's a great feat, you know, that'll get the confidence up. Then go and throw them over the back of the line out. You know, to then go to the pod going beyond the 15. Go to those things then. I just didn't like to see it happening when you looked like you'd never given him a nice look throughout the game, where, you know, pretty much his first line out he overthrows, Frawley slips, Jimmy O'Brien misses a shocker tackle, and it's, you know, it's under the sticks, and you're kind of like, oh Jesus. And then the other looks you're giving him, I'm just kind of wondering, you know, who's making the calls on that one? Who's adapting to the feel of the game? It's a feel you have in the game when it's not going right. Who can adapt there, or do they have that? Do they have that in their locker room? Is someone saying to them, no, we're going to trust you to bounce back from a setback in your mind. We're going to stick to what we're doing, and this is it. Because to me, that looks like it happens quite a bit with the line-outs. That when they're having a bad one, they never really bail themselves out with the calls. I never see a really big change in the calls. Maybe that's just my eye, but that's my.
There's a mobile speed camera reported ahead.
When I reflected on the game,
I don't think it's a mobile speed camera. It's the speed.
What I looked at to the untrained eye was that it looked like bad calling after, and they put themselves in difficult situations after knowing they were struggling. So like, why would you do that? That doesn't seem very smart to me. So I'd love to know the thinking behind that.
Yep.
And I don't
There
know
it is. Average speed
was
camera.
that just me that was thinking that, or do you guys agree?
No, I would agree, and I think the big concern there, I think that Will alluded to it earlier, was the experience that you still had there, because, you know, Kelleher is winning his 50th cap. You've got 2 secondaries that have been in the team for a decade, or the better part of a decade anyway. You've got Jack Conan there at the back. So for all the changes that you had, yes, your props for less experience, although to be fair, like Tom Toole has been in the camp for a long time, not at this level, it's been in balls for a long time. So the units there should have had plenty of familiarity with each other, so that's not really something that you can chalk Conan actively. I thought they all worked well together with the carrying ability of Jensen and Conan, and the work that Timothy was getting through. I thought all combined really, really well. There was really an awful lot else there. You know, you talk about people who'll be, I suppose, disappointed and feel like they weren't able to take the opportunity, along with Raleigh and Casey with Stockdale into that bracket, you know, in his first run. Coach James Lowe just didn't really get into the game. I think having the disappointment of not being involved against Australia with that 11 shirt vacant, I think that'll be a big disappointment for him as well. I think there was a good amount of energy off the bench in general, I thought. The kneecaps are always going to bring a bit of a buzz off the bench. The scrum is still shaky, but I thought those guys coming into the 5-5 did well. And then again, you saw that sort of unbridled enthusiasm that Word has. You saw a little bit of that as well. So it was a good buzz and good energy with all of the caps coming in, I thought.
Do you know another thing, guys, that they didn't really, not to, sorry, we'll go back to negative 10 here just for a second. The kickoffs in the first half were horrendous, and we have to mention that. Like, I don't know if I heard it did I hear the match commentary? Maybe I don't know. I didn't know if I heard it in the studio afterwards, but they got absolutely cleaned out in the air as well. They have to figure that out next week, because New Zealand will almost certainly be targeting that, be targeting Ireland in the air there. And they really left themselves exposed, and every time they kind of got, you know, they scored a try or they got a bit of positive momentum, they gave the ball up at the
Jimmy O'Brien twice.
Yeah, it's not all his fault. Like he's not that protected there. Like they even targeted some of the pods. The lift was there, was laid. I think they tried to lift Robbie Henshaw for one of them as well. That kind of didn't go well. They've got to be better there. They got cleaned out there in the first half. Really piled on the pressure on them. So sorry, that's another thing that I think that actually normally I would want to mention. That was quite evident that they were poor there, and they need to figure out was that like you think about what New Zealand would be looking at this week for this weekend. Line for sure, scrum for sure. They're absolutely going to look at kickoffs, and they'll be. If I was them, I'll be kicking to compete. I'll be not going to ping it long for Gibson Park to do that for one phase and ping you back kind of 40 metres. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to compete. I'll take the risk that they get the ball back. So they should anticipate that because they'll go from there as well. They'd be stupid not to.
Yeah. One last thing to mention on the bench, I actually thought Bundy Aki was very impactful again. I think he's playing really good rugby at the moment, the best rugby he's played in a while. I think his end of season kind of performance, I think, will fed through nice into the summer. So yeah, I think him in the 23 jerseys are really impactful. So I also really like Samuel went into the Japanese dressing room after the game to chat to Eddie Jones, something before the game. Eddie Jones was like, we're going to smash them in the scroll. They seem to be on good terms afterwards, but I like the moxie of a young lad going in to have a word with Eddie Jones and giving some verbals back. It sounded quite funny. We'll take a quick break and then we'll look ahead to Eden Park.
At Energia, we know you want your business to be the business, the bee's knees, the cream of the crop. Energia can help you save big on your energy costs with flexible and competitive rates that really are the business. Switch at energia.ie/business or call 0818 363744. T's and C's apply. Energia, think of the possibilities.
Okay, so that's the Japan game now. It comes to the big one that we've been looking forward to for so long. As soon as it was announced that we're going back to Eden Park, I think everyone was looking forward to this one. 52 games, including the France back in 1994. New Zealand are unbeaten in this venue, which is one of the craziest statistics in sport. New Zealand are 2 from 2 as well. So far this summer, they beat France 34-32 in the opening game of the whole championship. It was a really good game, back and forth, lots of momentum switches, and then last weekend 47-17 win over Italy, although it was only 14-10 until the very end of the first half, and then New Zealand got to score a try with Roygaard, and then in the second half Italy got a red card and everything was stupid with a foul play, and then New Zealand was kind of kicked on and won by 30 points to the end. Will Jordan scored a hat-trick. He broke Doug Howden's long-standing try record. That was Will Jordan's 50th try with his hat-trick, so what a stat to get. It's funny how long it's lasted. Doug Howden considering how many great wingers
Early at Slane.
Jonathan, what's your sense of where Ireland are at in terms of like taking this scalp? Obviously played in November the last 2 years and have been beaten pretty comprehensively on the scoreboard. There was always this kind of thing about Ireland maybe being undercooked for those fixtures. The guys either playing no rugby or very little rugby. Not that excuse this time around, obviously, given it's the end of the season. After the Australia game and what we saw last weekend, what's your view on how kind of ready Ireland are for this challenge?
I still think they're a level below it. Like, we saw Six Nations against France, we've seen like South Africa, and the 2 games against the All Blacks since the World Cup. I just think whenever Ireland are stepping up to face that big 3, if you like, they've consistently looked like that's not the level they're at. Now, we have to be fair and say that during the Six Nations we were including the challenge of going to Twickenham and beating England in that sort of
Slane concerts on this weekend, so
very comprehensively, but
Luke Combs is playing, so that's the reason for all the barriers.
Those teams that we're talking about, so it would be a massive
Usually wouldn't be
statement
like
for
this.
Ireland, the kind of which I don't think they've had for a while, going to one of those big 3 teams and beating them. I don't see anything in particular that makes me think it's going to happen.
That's one of the entrances there in
the All
Slane
Blacks
Coast.
have looked rejuvenated, if that's not too strong a word. Under Dave Rennie, they look to have got
Green plus.
some of that attacking DNA back into the side. Like, I don't think it's, we're not talking about the style that Rennie's trying to implement. I don't think it's rocket science, that's no disrespect to it, but when you have those players, the profile of those players, that's the kind of game that everybody will be looking to play. They're so dangerous on the counter again. And you mentioned that Italy game. That to me looked like a very New Zealand of 6-7 years ago, where you can't have a patch where you lose focus, because if you lose focus they pull away, and they were pulling away before the red card. The red card obviously exacerbated it, but I think they were always going to be able to overcome that early Italy challenge, and without the even card factor. So before we get into the location of the game, which I think is a bigger thing for Ireland than it is for the All Blacks, I think this would be a massive challenge for Ireland at the end of what is already a very long season.
Luke, since Ireland beat South Africa in the summer of 2024 with that Frawley drop goal, they've played 5 matches against New Zealand, France and England. Sorry, New Zealand, France and South Africa. They played New Zealand twice, France twice and South Africa once, and they've lost by double digits in all 5 games and haven't really been close to winning any of them. So the recent history against those kind of big 3 teams isn't great. What's your verdict on how Ireland are going to pitch up? Because the Australia win, obviously a great win, but there were elements of the game that if they play like that against New Zealand, I think New Zealand will punish Ireland a lot more heavily than Australia did.
Yeah, look, and you'd like to have a few more bodies on deck. Just think that loose out there. I think the scrum is going to be a problem. I feel like they'll get the line out right this weekend, but yeah, like I don't say that with 100% confidence. I just think there'll be such a focus on it this week to get it right that I do think that, so they're kind of obvious areas. I don't think the New Zealand are that far ahead of Ireland. I think there was a point where I actually like Italy are actually quite a good team, guys. Crazy red card in 51 minutes. For head, like what was being, I remember seeing it in my power pass, that looked like a head bump. It's crazy stuff, and I'm glad they picked it up. Stupid play, but they were pretty competitive for large parts of that game. And actually, the turning point was after the 3rd New Zealand try. Italy were on their line. I thought it was a definite penalty to Italy. Remember the turnover close to the line? I don't know if you remember that. It was like a real messy bit of play. Now, we didn't get an unbelievably good look at it, and they didn't look back on it. But I thought it didn't look right to the eye, the turnover, and the game kind of turned on that. Italy went back there. New Zealand went back down the paddock, put pressure on them. Italy then got that red card, and that was the end of the game from that point. But they looked a bit messy. I thought New Zealand's ball handling wasn't great. They actually had created quite a few opportunities, but like created some bad drop balls and bad passes at different points. But I can see quality in there if they can tidy up those mistakes.
Currently in Slane, looking all kitted out for the concert at the weekend.
It's their 3rd game. You'd think they'd be really fired up for this one. I think they'll have been targeting this game as well. That there is a big performance in this New Zealand team. And can you contain it if they're more accurate? I don't think they're unbelievably great shakes of fence. I think Ireland can score against these guys, but it's whether you can contain them in attack. I like the pack. They've got power there. As I said, if their ball handling's better, they could be a real threat. So can you put the pressure on? Can you force errors out of them? I think you can, but Ireland's defence hasn't been great so far in July. I think they'll fancy themselves in the centre potentially against these guys. I think they could put a little bit of pressure on them there. I worry about Prendergast a little bit in this one. I think they might target him, but I think in the centres, I think McCluskey is due a big game. I'd like to see him take on, Love and I love Barrett, but that's going to be a really interesting battle there. I think McCluskey's in attack. I mean, he's so good in attack. I really think he'll cause trouble for them there. So can they contain him? So I can kind of see a few areas where Ireland can get. I think they can have some pay against him in attack if we're accurate. I think if our rookie is going to need to be really good. I think that the centres, we might have a slight edge, very slight edge in there potentially. Didn't think New Zealand were great there. Didn't think they showed great defence. I thought Menoncello had a lot of he's a great player, but he had a lot of pay against them. So I think Ireland should be targeting that area. yeah, I think if you get the set piece right against them, they'll be right in this game. I don't expect them to win this. I don't expect us to win this weekend. I think we need a few more of our big guys. I think you'd like to have Doris, you'd like to bring Conan off the bench, you'd like to have Baird maybe on the bench as well for your lineup, but also for your just for a bit of power around the pitch and off the bench. And you'd like to have your two loose heads, your two starting loose heads available for selection for this one, guys. It's kind of key. I think the Groot and Lomax are very good players, like like underrated. I think they're not mentioned as much because the South African guys and the French guys are just they're probably a bit far ahead of everyone else, but they're really good players, guys, really good around the pitch and very good at scrummagers, I think, for the most part. So yeah, I can't wait for it. I think it's a massive match. I think Ireland will pitch up. I think they'll be better at the set piece, and I think it will be close. But I think they'll have a little bit too much for us. I think is what I'm gauging, and that's my sense of it.
Yeah, there were a lot of threats. Even I think Roygard has really come on a lot. Yeah, he's really like kind of the Aaron Smith heir at the moment. Like he's so great. 15 tries, 19 tests. Sniper on the line, great support line. All the top nines are like DuPont and Gibson Parker. Yeah, get on the like big game. And like he hasn't very inexperienced at international level. That's one in the back line that isn't kind of very, very well known in that regard. Like so McCain, Jordan, Jordy Barrett, like there's a lot of threats in the back line.
Would you go there to McKenzie? That's an area I was thinking about that. I think they need to test him in the air. You can't let him run the show from the back, taking balls out the back from Love, from Barrett. I don't think you can let him kind of dictate the game, float around the game. They've got to try and tie him down. They've got to try and attack. He's like, look, he actually is quite good in the air, but he's still a smaller guy. If you can get on top of him, like that's where I'd be targeting him. I don't know what you think, Jonathan, but trying to figure out ways into the game. There's not a huge amount of obvious ones. I think there's maybe areas where Ireland might have a slight edge, but not a massive one. And that's maybe somewhere where I might think to attack. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what way they go with the back three as well. Ireland go with the back three in terms of selection, whether they feel like they can make a selection to exploit that. I think that'll be interesting to watch. And you talk about Ireland in the air, obviously Keane in there as well. I think that is an area that they will look to. I just don't think the All Blacks are as good a defensive side as Ireland are, but equally Ireland need to be really on the tops of their game defensively. You look at the record in Eden Park, and obviously it's an awful lot of different teams in different eras, but Ireland have conceded 40 points in 3 and 4 games that they've played there during this record. That's not going to get it done on the weekend. The defence is going to have to be at its peak, I think, to stop what I think is a burgeoning All Black side, an All Black side that is getting back into a rhythm, albeit one that still makes mistakes. But I definitely think those are 2 areas where Ireland will feel like they are a better team than the All Blacks.
Jonathan, team selection wise, what way would you go? Obviously, for the Australia game, Keane Prendergast was starting at number 6. That was kind of an interesting call at the time. Tyke Byrne was kept on the bench. He obviously hadn't played any rugby after his injury towards the end of the season for quite a while, so that kind of made sense in that regard. Obviously, having started last weekend and came off the bench against Australia, he'd be far more up to speed for this weekend if he gets picked. Osborne was a big kind of left field call, I suppose. We hadn't really factored a huge amount. What do you reckon? We'll see the Australian team. Do you think Tyke Byrne comes back in? What would you do?
I think Tyke Byrne comes back in. I still think like the Osborne selection in the first game post James Lowe, I think is really interesting. I think that'll be the first thing that I'm looking for. He repeats that ball, whether he tries to change it up. He doesn't have probably as many options as he would like in that back three, and I think that's will play interestingly into the tactics as well. I think he probably will go Osborne again. We've seen how much trust he has in Osborne in a variety of positions, but it's interesting to me that he was the first man into that 11 jersey after James Lowe. And then I think the interesting thing in terms of what we're taking out of Saturday, and we've already said we can't take an awful lot out of it, but it's has Sean Johnson forced his way into a bench spot behind Conan. I think that'll be worth keeping an eye on too.
Judging from the reporting coming out of New Zealand, I would be shocked if Jansen is not on the bench, because everyone seems to have arrived at the conclusion at the exact same time that Jansen is very likely to be on the bench this weekend. So I am expecting him potentially to be number 20 with Burnley starting. Kind of plenty a second row cover in the team if there is a second row injury, because you have Ryan, McCarthy and Byrne potentially all in the same team. And I like that position. Like, I think Johnson's a big punchy ball carrier. I think you could do with him and Flax in that regard. Luke, just on the Osborne point, him going up against Will Jordan does kind of make me nervous.
Yeah, well, Jordan's a great player, like really great player. He's really solid. He kind of cruises around, doesn't look like he's going at great pace, but like try catch him. Like, and you can see some of the positions he finds himself in. Makes like he's a lovely ball handler too, so you can't just mark him. You actually have to mark him properly. You know what I mean? You know, some speedsters you go, well, he's not going to pass. He's kind of selfish.
Sevilla wasn't a ball handler, like so.
No, he's got it all. He's good in the air as well. Pretty nice short kicking game. So you got to be really like Keenan's going to have to really support his winger there. Just a very very smart player. You don't get to 50 tries without being a really top quality footballer as well, being kind of having the physical attributes on the wing to be that decisive and that accurate. So yeah. I think the other thing is it would be but does he give you enough on the wing as well? Like that would really cement. I think it would really cement him in your 23. If he has a good outing against
the road between Slane.
Okay, well that is he's a genuine option there. He's got the left foot that we want. We don't use as much anymore, but we still like it. And then like I think my worries about him is a good defender, but I don't think he looks like a great defender on the wing. I think he looks a little out of sort. Very difficult place to be trying to defend kicks and be in the connected to the second last defender is, or wherever the 13 is. People don't understand. I think it's the hardest place to defend on the pitch. Everyone else says 13. 13 actually has bodies both sides of him. You've got the biggest you've got the biggest distance between the next guy coming to help come to bail you out, which is usually the 15 or it could be the 9 in the current systems, and you actually have a guy who's also got a really difficult job next to you as the 13, and oftentimes their decision is made by what happens inside them anyway, and it's happening a long way away from you. If you're not close enough, it's very hard to react. It's such a difficult place and you're usually defending against the most A players on the pitch. It's usually 15s and wingers who you're defending against, and they're usually the best athletes on the pitch. So really difficult job. I don't think people appreciate how difficult. The more time he has in the